Ducati's claim that its flagship adventure bike will exercise ultimate authority over the terrain it rides upon is a powerful one. And if you're making bold statements like that, you best bring your A game. But Ducati haven't brought their A game, they've redefined it. The Multistrada's biggest expression of redefinition lies in the way it handles. While it's ultimately an adventure bike fitted with a 19-inch front wheel, long travel suspension and adventure tyres, it handles like a sports bike. Think naked bike, super naked, basically anything other than a full-blown sports bike, and you won't be too far away from the way that the Multistrada feels handling-wise. The feeling of grip the front end gives, the mid-corner stability and the way it holds a really tight line simply redefines how good an adventure bike can handle. If it wasn't for the big screen and wide handlebars in front of you, you could forget you're on a big super adventure machine, finding yourself pushing harder into corners, carrying way more lean than is appropriate, and opening the throttle harder than you'd ever have thought possible. I've never wanted to do a track day on an adventure bike, but on the Multi, I'd be figuring out ways to lift the foot pegs and getting booked on. For such a continent-crushing machine with massive amounts of comfort, it's very performance-oriented and very engaging to ride. When it comes to hard tarmac, the Ducati very much rules the road. The engagement from the Panigale-derived V4 Gran Turismo motor kicking out 170 horsepower is massive. It just does everything. It has power everywhere, it's as soft as butter when you want, and it goes like a bat out of hell when you don't. This level of modulation combines with its power to make the Multistrada playful. It's easy to modulate a power slide on the beach and snappy enough for third gear monster wheelies. Both myself and Ollie jumped off the V4 and said the same thing. It has the torque and snap of a twin, but then it powers like a 4-cylinder at the top. It combines awesome performance with excellent refinement. The lumpy sound you hear doesn't match the silky smooth power delivery you experience. Unlike the Street Fighter V4, it's not possible to alter the strength of the engine brake, but to us it felt perfect and allows the bike to hold a really tight cornering line. Wow, Ducati have done an absolutely incredible job with this V4 motor. Yeah, I mean, to think that this is the same Panigale V4 Superbike derived motor is absolutely incredible. It's as happy crawling up tough trails as it is modulating a power slide on the beach, as it is absolutely flat out on some of the A roads that we've got. It's a really, really impressive machine. But even more impressive than the performance is its service schedule. It's like something I've never heard of before. 60,000 kilometer valve clearance check on this bike with just oil changes in between. I've never heard anything like it, and it's a testament to how well this motor is engineered. While we discuss performance, we also have to talk about the brakes and suspension. The full Brembo braking system makes for a fantastic setup. This hardware, combined with a top-notch ABS package, which allows the rear ABS to be disabled, means that you can brake as hard as you like, skid the rear and do rolling stoppies if you so wish. Like most of the Ducati range, the brake setup is a class act and light years ahead of any of its Japanese rivals. While the potential 400 settings on the Skyhook suspension package sounds intimidating, in reality, with the dynamic suspension mode selected, the hardware and electronics of the suspension just sort it all out. During our test on all terrains, we didn't find any need to adjust anything other than the rider modes. Sporty when you want it to be, soft and compliant when you don't. Want to take it off-road? Just put it in enduro mode and the bike just figures it out. We must make a special mention of the Pirelli tyres fitted to the Multistrada. While they don't have much ultimate grip off-road, they were fantastic on it. Brilliant in the wet, loads of feel and confidence, and a perfect match for the machine. With a bike with such a great hardware package, ultimately it means you can just focus on the road ahead of you, and that is where the adventure starts. So like all modern Ducatis, the Multistrada V4, attention to detail is second to none. And whether you like that adventure bike look, that's up to you, but the details are absolutely fantastic. Let me take you through a few of them. So take, for example, these air scoops here. They're probably providing a little bit of downforce, but more importantly, they're keeping the famously hot running Ducati V4 motor and the rider much cooler. The quality of the panelling is top notch, the paint scheme really beautiful, and just generally the fit and finish is fantastic. These mirrors are really rock sturdy and they incorporate blind spot indicators as well, which is really useful for motorway riding. I mean, even the bars have rubber mounts on them so you don't get the vibrations, and also have indicators as well, so you can go from a road riding position up to a more upright handlebar position with the indicators included. Even the panniers, which are excellent by the way, come with this special mechanism that actually they move left to right. When you turn on a corner and you've got heavy luggage in, it just makes aggressive riding with panniers included a much better experience. Even little things like the rubber mounted foot pegs, they're actually an interference fit rubber, so you can just remove the rubber tread just with your hands without having to take the tools out, and then you're ready for off-road work. But because it's an interference fit, you just pop it back in and they don't come back out. And even though it's an option as part of the more expensive Multistrada V4 package that we've got, the Akropovich end can is just a thing of beauty. I mean, just look at it. And the braking system is top notch. I mean, this is Ducati's flagship adventure model, so I guess they're gonna be, but these are the Brembo Stylema calipers. They've got braided lines, but it's even the little things like the lines that go to the ABS pump, they're also braided as well. So if you're used to a Japanese model, you know, there'll be braided lines for show, rubber mounted ones where you can't see, but Ducati put braided lines everywhere. It's just these little things that make a difference. Similar to the hardware of the bike, the electronic aids fitted to the Multistrada are market leading in our opinion. The dashboard interface is great and it's consistent with the other models in the Ducati range, but it's the smoothness of the electronic interferences and the level of adjustment that is the thing that impresses. Our Lake District passes combine a lot of bumps with steep inclines, and especially when wet can send any traction control into overdrive, often initiating a kangaroo effect of hard power cuts and makes for an unpleasant experience. In fact, with many of the new bikes out there, we end up turning the traction control off as the riding experience isn't great. With the Multistrada, the interferences are comparatively smooth, and by dialing in a lower traction control setting, you can experience a great riding experience alongside the comforting mirage of electronic protection. In fact, the only time that we needed to turn the traction control off entirely was on the beach, as the amount of rear wheel slip required to make forward progress wasn't permitted within the settings. Same goes for the wheelie control. With multiple settings, the rider can dial in the preferred level of interference. This is way more sophisticated than the usual on or off switch. I'll insert a shot here showing it working under hard acceleration. To say the Multistrada is sophisticated is a massive understatement, and it's tempting to turn this video into an hour-long episode covering every nook and cranny of this beautifully engineered machine. And I'm sure that owning one is a layered experience, with new features and favourite settings coming to light over the time that you live with it. But we must make a special mention for the adaptive cruise control installed. In my opinion, adaptive cruise control on a super adventure long distance machine is the future. Set your speed and your preferred distance to the vehicle in front, and the system simply manages the relationship that you have with the other vehicles in front of you. In practice, it makes motorway mile munching totally effortless. It removes stress and ultimately makes for a safer ride. The Ducati complements this with an additional radar in the back that powers the blind spot indicators. They are also useful, but it did make us less keen to push the machine when off-road, with thoughts of expensive mirror replacements coming to mind. In terms of comfort, essentially it's the most comfortable motorcycle I have ever ridden. With a super soft heated seat, heated grips, wide handlebars, comfortable riding position, and the best adventure screen on the market. It goads you into covering big distances, and if I had one of these, I'd be leaving the car on the drive and riding much more in all conditions. Ducati's claim that the Multistrada rules all roads very much set the tone for this test, and it saw us riding some of the Lake District's very best roads, trails and beaches, splitting our time equally between tarmac and loose terrain. While it's tempted to get carried away here and start chucking it at harder and harder terrain, we have to remember that the Multistrada is a 20,000 plus machine with breakable and expensive plastics and ultimately weighs 242 kilos. The Multistrada did a fantastic job of the off-road terrain that we put it on, but being honest, it feels a bit too special to really push the boundaries, and I'm sure that most owners would agree with that, considering the plummeting resale value every time a panel gets scuffed or cracked. I think with the correct engine bars, bark busters and better tyres fitted, we could have pushed it a bit more. But in its current guise, it just didn't feel quite right. The concept of dropping it down the 2 to 3 foot gullies we encountered didn't feel like a good idea at the time, and I'm sure it wouldn't feel right again if we were to repeat the test. Our time with the Multistrada was undoubtedly very special. This test was about having an adventure here in the English Lake District, and the Multistrada delivered that and more, with an engagement level that neither myself or Ollie expected. From hitting some of the best A-roads in the country, to mountain passes and beaches, the Ducati was incredible. Any downsides? Well, Ducati told me that they were very confident in their Multistrada V4, and you know what? They've every right to be. It is simply fantastic. But that's not to say it doesn't have a couple of downsides. And the first one is, similar to the Street Fighter V4, the fuel economy and range really isn't great, especially when you consider this is an adventure bike. Our worst range was 107 miles and our best was 140 miles. Now that was with 3 litres left in the tank, so not a lot there. I think if you were to consider putting a pillion on and more weight in your luggage and running E10 fuel, you're probably going to get considerably worse. And other than that, we're really clutching at straws, to be honest. We have noticed a bit of rubbing on the subframe where your boot hits the side, and the mobile phone stroke key holder compartment on the top of the tank. Invariably, when I'm putting my arm on it by accident, I kind of tend to open it without realising. That's not great because it's often got your key in it as well, so that could fly out at different points. It could also do with being a little bit bigger. Getting your mobile phone out ends up like a bit of a game of operation, which isn't great. So as I've mentioned, other than the fuel range, we're really clutching at straws. The Multistrada V4 is absolutely phenomenal. And if you've got the budget to do it, go ahead. I mean, this thing is gonna rock your world. Ducati's claim that the Multistrada is gonna rule all roads. Absolutely.